Hey guys, my name's Miss Davis, and today you're going to be watching a video to introduce line graphs. Line graphs are going to be the first topic that we talk about in 5th grade math, so I hope you guys are ready to get started and are excited to learn. First off, we're going to start with what a line graph is. So a line graph is a graph that shows information that is connected in some way. Usually it's showing change over time or things like that. Most of you guys, I'm sure, have seen a line graph or have used it at some point in your life. It looks kind of like this. It looks like a big L, basically. And we like to make these with our arms just so we can show the different axes and parts of the line graph as well. So I have an example, and it's a work in progress because we're still going to do some stuff with it. I have an example of a line graph here. And notice it only has one dot on it and no line. So we're getting there. Just know. But I want to talk about a couple different pieces of the line graph. So I'm going to scoot a little bit closer. So here we have, first off, the title. That is very important. Our line graphs are going to have titles. And this one is rain totals. So we're going to be talking about how much rain we receive, different things like that. The other pieces of our line graphs are going to be our axes, which notice we have one going right here in red and the other one going right here in blue. Now, this is a part that you're going to need to know, and you're going to need to know for the first couple of weeks here in 5th grade math. The first part is this blue line right down here. It is the x-axis. So I'm going to go ahead with my blue marker and I'm going to label it as x-axis real quick, just so I have that and I can remember that. Okay, so I've got my line right there labeled as x-axis. The other one is going to be my red line. And my red axis is going to be titled the y-axis. So I'm going to label it up top here as the y-axis. If you ever have a line graph that isn't labeled with the axes, I would definitely encourage you to get those labeled. It just helps you remember and helps you know when you're being asked questions, the locations of the different points. The other piece of the line graphs, obviously going to be our different titles on the side. These are our axis labels here. So down here, we know that these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they represent days. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. Notice over here on the y-axis that this represents the number of centimeters. So we have to assume that's number of centimeters of rain that they received. So we have 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 8 centimeters, and 9 centimeters. And hopefully you guys learned about centimeters a little bit last year. Centimeter is a very, very tiny amount. You can usually find it on a ruler. It's the really small lines that are in between the inches. So that's talking about how many centimeters of rain that they received. And we're just going to pretend like this happened in Mooresville. So this is talking about rain that's occurred over here. So we can see that on day 1, they received 2 centimeters of rain. I'm going to finish plotting my points on here. And the points that you see that I'm going to be plotting in pink on here to match this one are going to be called data points. These are our data points. These are what we're looking at in order to tell us the day and the number of centimeters they received. So let's see. Alright, so I've got my data points plotted there, and now you're probably wondering, it's a line graph though, and there's just dots on there. Well, I need to draw a line through it in order to connect my pieces, to connect my dots. So I always like to connect the dots, so I'm going to do that here. So here is my line. It kind of looks like a mountain. But we're going to talk about what these data points mean. So this data point right here means that on day 1, they received 2 centimeters of rain. On day 2, they received 5 centimeters of rain. Day 3, they received 8 centimeters of rain. Day 4, they received 4 centimeters of rain. And day 5, they received 1 centimeter of rain. So using a line graph, we're able to tell what our data is. And you can always write that out over here to the side if you feel like you need to write that down. The other part with line graphs is that some people may ask you questions about these line graphs. And some of the questions might be easy, like, how many centimeters of rain did they get on day 3? Well, that's easy. I can easily go through, and I'm going to grab my brown marker here. I can easily go through and say, okay, on day 3, so day 3 is right here, I'm going to follow it straight up, they got 8 centimeters of rain. That's simple. Day 3, 8 centimeters of rain. Other questions might have you do some math with it. So they might be a little bit more difficult. They may say, what's the difference between the number of centimeters received on day 1 and day 4? Well, I can look here and see that on day 4, I received 4 centimeters. Day 1, I received 2 centimeters. And we have to think about that math word, difference. What does difference mean? Well, if I'm looking for the difference, I'm going to be subtracting. So I've got to subtract 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. So the difference between day 4 and day 1 would be 2 centimeters. We always want to make sure that those things are labeled so we know what we're talking about. If you just tell me 2, I don't know whether you're talking about day 2 or centimeters 2 or rain. Okay, so you have to be very specific when you're naming those. All right. Next week, we will talk more about line graphs, and we will start learning about some more challenging ones and even answering more challenging questions. So this was just an introduction video. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your teacher and ask them and let them know. But otherwise, I will see you guys next week.